Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into, well, really one of the biggest questions in modern education, isn't it? How do you find that sweet spot, that balance between screens and traditional methods for actual deep learning? You're looking for the shortcut through all the noise, and that's exactly what we aim to give you. We hear all the time, kids today are digital natives. I mean, they can swipe before they can walk, practically. But does being comfortable with tech automatically mean it's better for, really learning things? Is more screen time the answer? To figure that out, we've pulled together some pretty powerful sources. We're looking at official advice from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the health side of things. Then there's some solid academic research, a quantitative study directly comparing print and digital reading comprehension, and crucially, we've got perspectives from the ground, what students and teachers are actually finding works or doesn't work in classrooms right now. So our mission here is to sift through this, unpack the data. When do screens help development and learning, and when do they actually hinder it?
The goal is finding that just right balance for you, whether you're navigating this as a student, a parent, or an educator.
Right. And if we start with that foundational piece, health and development, the main takeaway is, well, maybe simpler than we think. Digital media isn't inherently bad. It definitely has its uses. The problem starts, the real danger zone, is when screen time displaces other essential stuff. Like getting outside, playing, actually interacting face-to-face with people, exploring things hands-on. That displacement, that's the core issue, and it has real, measurable impacts on physical health. Our sources point directly to a link between too much screen time and the risk of obesity. Specifically, one study found teens watching over 5 hours of TV a day were, get this, 5 times more likely to be overweight compared to those watching 2 hours or less.
5 times. That's not a small number.
Yeah.
And it really drives home that it's about the environment we create, isn't it? It's not just about the content, but the time it takes away from other things.
Exactly. It's an environmental factor and one we can potentially influence. Then there's the other big health piece, sleep. The research is very clear here. Media use messes with sleep. Kids and teens using social media late or, and this is critical, sleeping with their phones or tablets in the bedroom, they're at much higher risk for sleep problems. And poor sleep, as we know, just cascades into everything else: mood, focus, learning.
Okay, so those are the big risks. To help manage them, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, they have specific guidelines, right? Especially for younger kids where development is so rapid.
They do, and they're quite specific by age. For the very youngest, under 18 months, the advice is basically avoid screens altogether. The only exception they make is video chatting, so FaceTiming family is okay. Then, for ages 2 to 5, the limit is really strict, just 1 hour per day, and it needs to be high-quality programming. But here's the really crucial part for that age group. Parents should be co-viewing. You need to be there with them, talking about what they're seeing, helping them connect it to the world around them. It's not meant to be a passive babysitter.
That makes sense, because that directly tackles the language development issue mentioned in the sources too, doesn't it? If a kid's just staring passively, they're missing out on that back and forth conversation with a caregiver, which is vital for learning language.
Precisely. Screens can reduce both how much and how well caregivers interact with young children. It's a critical window for language. Now, for older kids, ages 6 and up, the AAP shifts focus. It's less about rigid time limits and more about setting consistent boundaries. The main thing is making sure media doesn't push out essentials. Enough sleep, at least an hour of physical activity daily, and other healthy habits. They suggest concrete things like designating media-free times. Dinner is a common one, and media-free zones, like bedrooms, making those non-negotiables.
Okay, so we've got the health angle in the Unplugged for physical and developmental well-being. What about the cognitive side? Did all this early screen exposure actually affect how kids think and learn later on, maybe even in school?
It seems to. There's evidence linking excessive media use, especially media multitasking, juggling multiple screens or apps, to weaker executive functions, things like working memory, the ability to hold information in mind, and in addition, controlling impulses. Those can be negatively affected. But there's also some striking long-term academic data. One study followed kids from age 2. It found that for every extra hour of daily TV they watched at that age, by the time they reached 4th grade, there was a corresponding 7% drop in their classroom participation. And, maybe even more concerning, a 6% drop in their math scores.
Wow, 7% less participation, 6% lower in math years later, traced back to an extra hour of TV at age 2. That really illustrates how that early displacement isn't just about missing playtime then. It potentially sets a different trajectory for academic engagement down the road. That's pretty compelling for sticking to those early limits. Okay, let's pivot now. Let's talk about when kids are learning doing complex schoolwork. Does the actual format they use reading on paper versus reading on a screen make a difference in how much they understand and retain?
This is where we get into that specific academic study comparing print and digital. It was a quasi-experimental setup, focusing on literature students dealing with complex texts. And the results were statistically significant. The students using traditional print materials, their average comprehension score was 21.0. The group using digital versions of the same text scored, on average, 18.14.
That's nearly a 3-point difference just from switching the medium. In grading terms, that could easily be a letter grade difference, couldn't it? But hang on, digital has advantages too, right? Searching, clicking links, accessibility. Surely that helps learning in some ways.
It absolutely helps for certain tasks. Research, finding specific facts quickly, accessing vast amounts of information. No question. But for deep linear comprehension of complex material, print seems to have an edge. The theory behind this, one prominent one, is Pavio's dual coding theory. Basically, the idea is that reading on paper engages both verbal processing, understanding the words, and visual spatial processing. You mentally map the text on the page. Things like physically annotating, underlining, that seems to engage you more deeply, activating multiple cognitive pathways. It helps lock it in.
So reading on paper isn't just about seeing the words, it's about building a kind of mental architecture for the information, something the scrolling nature of screens might disrupt.
That seems to be the idea. Digital formats often encourage more of a surface-level interaction, as the researchers put it. We tend to skim, scan, jump around more online, which is fine for grabbing information, but maybe less effective for deep meaning-making with complex arguments or narratives. And let's not forget, the physical side studies consistently show screens cause more eye strain and physical discomfort during prolonged reading compared to paper. That fatigue impacts focus, too.
This isn't just theory anymore, is it? We're seeing this play out on a national scale with that big story out of Sweden.
Exactly. Sweden was really held up as a pioneer, going all in on digital classrooms, tablets for everyone. And now, they're hitting the brakes, hard. They're concerned that over-reliance on tech actually undermined critical thinking and fundamental knowledge, so much so that the government is making a huge financial commitment, $60 million just this year, and more planned.
Wow, 60 million euros.
Specifically to bring back printed textbooks, one for every student, in every subject. They're citing research showing paper reduces mental fatigue and improves focus and comprehension compared to screens for sustained learning tasks. It's a massive policy reversal based on these concerns.
Okay, the message seems pretty clear. For deep reading and focus, print holds real advantages. But obviously we can't ditch technology. It's essential now. The sources all seem to land on needing a balance, right? A hybrid approach. So where does digital technology really shine in education? When is it the clearly better tool?
Technology definitely excels in specific areas. Visualization is a big one, making abstract concepts concrete. Take chemistry, for example. One source mentioned college prep students using interactive PET simulations.
PET, right? Those free online science simulations, they're fantastic.
Exactly. They use them to actually see how atoms group together when balancing chemical equations. Instead of just symbols on a page, they could manipulate the simulation, see the connection to multiplication visually. That kind of thing is incredibly powerful for understanding abstract science concepts. Screens are great for that.
Visualization, got it. What about handling complex information or data?
That's another major strength, especially for more advanced students like in AP courses. Digital tools like spreadsheets, Google Sheets was mentioned, they make managing and analyzing large data sets so much easier. Imagine calculating reaction kinetics from experimental data by hand versus using a spreadsheet to plot graphs and run calculations instantly. It lets students focus on the analysis, not just the tedious plotting. Convenience and power there. And beyond specific tools, technology enables whole new ways of structuring learning. Think about HyFlex models.
Hybrid flexible, yeah, where students choose if they attend in person, online live, or online later.
Right. Or blended learning, which mixes face-to-face instruction with online components you do on your own time. These models offer a level of flexibility and personalization that you just can't get with purely traditional methods.
That flexibility is a huge plus. And we also saw digital tools enabling really cool hands-on STEM work, didn't we? Like in Fab Labs.
Yes, using tech for tangible creation. Things like designing and 3D printing models, simulating complex systems like wind dynamics, building circuits with microcontroller replicas. This fosters those crucial 21st century skills. Creativity, problem solving, prototyping. Technology as a tool for making things, not just consuming information.
Okay, so digital wins for visualization, data crunching, flexibility, and advanced making. powerful stuff. But then when the sources asked students what they preferred for certain core academic tasks, the pendulum swung right back to analog, didn't it? Particularly for math and notes. Why is that?
It's interesting, isn't it? You'd think digital tools would be great for organization. But students, quite consistently, preferred plain old pen and paper for math-heavy work. Things like complex chemistry calculations, stoichiometry was mentioned, or writing out detailed answers to free response questions. They said analog gives them the space they need to organize their thoughts, spread out the steps, and importantly, maintain focus without digital distractions being just a click away. And it's the same story for note-taking. Students generally find handwritten notes easier to recall, easier to focus on while taking them. There might be something about the physical act of writing, that kinesthetic link, that helps embed the information differently than typing. Back to that dual coding idea, perhaps.
So it really highlights the teacher's role in navigating this, doesn't it? The sources said tech should be a helper, not a boss.
Absolutely. It emphasizes the need for teachers to be well-trained, not just in using the tech, but in when to use it. Pedagogical judgment is key. They need the autonomy and the expertise to choose the right tool for the specific learning goal. Sometimes that's a simulation, sometimes it's a spreadsheet, and sometimes it's unequivocally pen and paper and focused in-person instruction. Recognizing the limits of tech is as important as recognizing its strengths.
Okay, let's try to wrap this deep dive up. We're looking for that just right balance. It seems digital tools are absolutely indispensable for visualizing ideas, managing data, offering flexibility, accessing resources, all crucial. But, and it's a big but, print and analog methods, pen and paper, they still hold a critical role for deep reading comprehension, sustained attention, and tackling those complex step-by-step problems, especially in math and science. The students themselves, when asked, seem to confirm this. They want the hybrid approach.
That's the consensus, really. From the health guidelines warning about displacement, to the comprehension studies favoring print for depth, to the students' own preferences for different tasks, the medium really does matter. So the big takeaway isn't just about limiting time on screens, though that's important for health. It's about critically evaluating the quality of the interaction and the cognitive demands of the medium itself. Is it fostering deep engagement, or is it encouraging shallow processing, even if it feels efficient?
Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given that the data suggests print is better for deep comprehension, and even high-achieving students prefer analog for complex, high-stakes work like math tests, how should educators and maybe even policymakers rethink assessment? Should we be designing exams and major assignments differently, making sure that when screens are used in assessment, they're genuinely augmenting cognitive abilities, like helping analyze complex data rather than just being the default format that might inadvertently promote distraction or superficial work? Something to keep digging into.